we had like the sticker or the plaque on the wall. Like, yes. And then I worked with Affinity with what's his name?
Brad
Beidão. They call him Beidão in Brazil.
Is it Brad Owen?
No. Shit, I was seminary school a while ago. Can't remember. Great. Neil. Yeah, great guy. Yeah. And but then you had that sticker on the wall that says like no drilling.
Yeah.
I remember. Like I just thought it was funny because like I feel the same way you do about this. And when the whole drilling thing started, I remember how it started. Like I've got to drill, right? And I'm going. The people who are talking about drill, I'm not going to mention names, but people are writing books on drilling. I know them for a fact. I've trained with them for years in Brazil, and I've never seen them drill. Yeah, I think I'm not, we're going to talk a little more about this, but I always thought it was, it's not a necessary and elementary number to the equation.
No.
I think that there's room for it, and I like some aspects of it. But where did this come from? Like, why are you so critical of drilling?
Well, like I said, when I was going from white to black belt, so I went from white to black belt in about 4 years with no prior grappling experience. I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I do this, and let's try and replicate the same results. And then when I started looking at case studies, I started discovering that drilling had very little impact in progression. If not, it was more detrimental to progression than what it was beneficial.
Yeah. I'm allergic to this. He was an advocate of drilling.
It was like a little bullshit under it.
This is all bullshit.
It's hard to hear this. I started looking at case studies, and I'll explain a little bit about how they went. And they're basically showing that, and I understand why people do it. And I think for some sports and for some areas of work, they're great for like if you're on an assembly line or something where you've got to continue to do the same thing over and over again, it's the perfect way of learning because you don't want to be thinking, you just want to react really quickly. Yeah. In something like jiu-jitsu that's highly, multi-complex with different people, different personalities, I don't think you're ever going to see the same position exactly twice. There'll be very similar variations, but they're always going to be very different. Yeah. So anything that's made from muscle memory is great. And I think certain areas like wrestling, like learning how to shoot really quick and stuff like that, I think it can be beneficial for just to start off with, just to get that movement and stuff like that. But jiu-jitsu, without the wrestling, there's not a lot of that isn't necessary because a lot of it's not speed-based. It's timing-based, and a lot of it's very slow and it's methodical. But I understand why people go into that because when let's say you go from not knowing a technique to practicing a technique, you start off really bad and then you practice it more and more and you can start seeing tangible progression in your ability to perform that technique with a cooperating partner. And you see the progression, it feels like, okay, I'm getting better and getting better at something, but you don't realize that the crossover into actual skill, acquisition and training isn't like there.
Yeah.
And the case studies showed that they did, there's like 4 or 5 different studies on this. One was basketball, one was a certain hand movement, one was golf, one was baseball. And basically what happened is they would I'll tell you the basketball one. They had 2 groups separated, and one group practiced, I think it's called a free throw, is it?
Yep.
Free throw from the
I saw that study.
Yep. You saw the study, okay. And the other group did it from multiple areas. Yeah. And during the training, they were all tested at the end. And the group that were doing the
specific,
yes. So the group that was doing the one from the one area, they had a little bit better progression during training than the other group. It was pretty much under them like that. And then they tested it the next day, and the group that was just doing what you would call the drilling of the same technique went down about 60%, and the other group continued to go up. Yeah. And what they kind of discovered is that when you're doing any kind of exercise, you're doing 4 things. You are analyzing the situation. Let's say for basketball, you're looking at the distance of the ring, depending on how tall you are, if there's any wind.
There's an equation going on.
Yes, and you got to figure that out. And then you come up with a solution. Okay, I'm going to execute it using about this much strength and, whatever it is. And then you shoot it. And then you evaluate how you went. Was it a little bit short? Okay, it's a little bit short. So you take that information and you start again with new information.
You learn how to calibrate.
Yes. Yeah. And you do that for the first 3 or 4 until you get one. And then from then on, all you're doing is continuing the body movement. So you're learning the motor functions of it, but there's no neurological work going on. There's no synapses because you've already figured out that equation. Yeah. And then it's just your body. Where the other group was doing everything continuously over and over again. So they developed mentally much more than the other group. So they also developed physically, but mentally as well. So if you look at any kind of like jiu-jitsu, one of the main things of getting good jiu-jitsu is, skill acquisition and remembering what's going on. Because if you can't remember what's going on, you're never going to progress, So a big part of that is problem solving. You have to have that problem solving situation that you keep going, because once you get to the end and you analyze your results, you take that information to the start and then you start again. And then you take that information to the start and your knowledge on an area just keeps growing and growing and growing. And they also discovered that your memory system is like a scaffolding system. That the less information you have, the harder it is to learn new information, because we learn by association more than anything else. Okay. It doesn't matter whether you learn kinesthetically, visual, it's how you associate with that information. So if you've got nothing to associate with what someone's teaching you, it's very hard to grasp what's going on. Yeah. And that's why good coaches like yourself use good analogies. Yeah. You use certain analogies that people know about so they can associate new information. The more information you have on something, the easier it is to learn new stuff. So I think with specific training being, one of the best tools of learning, because you're in a confined environment and it's a safe place to practice something in a certain area, you're going to keep developing more and more information and understand not just like what you're doing, but why you're doing it, which is much more important than how.
And it teaches you how to think. I like going back to the thing we're talking about, the calibration, because I saw that study and I remember drawing the same conclusions. It's like if people do things specifically, it's like they plateau because there's no stimuli. Mm-hmm. It's the variety of stimuli that makes you teach how to think, how to adapt. And jiu-jitsu is a lot about improvising, like you were saying. No two situations, like for example, I can grapple with Dave every day, and it kind of like we do end up in the same situations over and over. Kind of like when we fought. It was just like, even then when we grapple, it was like a replay of the one time we fought. Because like I can't sweep him, he can't pass, whatever. We keep doing the same things over and over. But it's never identical.
No.
It's never identical. And I think that it's the variety of stimuli and teaching your body how to think on the spot and improvise on the spot is what makes good grappling.
Yeah.
And that's not something easy to do. Like it's something that comes with a lot of practice. And I have my doubts if the kind of drilling that people do is beneficial for that. I do like some kinds of drilling, and we can talk. I'm sure Dave because he comes from wrestling, so they have, and that I like. The way wrestlers drill, I like. But I see some people doing some of the, you guys, everyone's going to recognize this, where one of them's laying down, the other one puts one hand on each knee, and they kind of skip left and right. Yeah. And I'm watching people do that. I'm going, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for over 20 years, and never have I ever seen anyone, any guard get past that way. 22 years jiu-jitsu, never seen it. But people drill it, and they like just skip their feet left and right. And I'm watching that, I'm going, you're just frying their nervous system. That has the benefit to your jiu-jitsu as the same as jogging has. Yeah. Like jogging benefits your jiu-jitsu. You're moving your feet, you get a little cardio, but there's no technical improvement.
No. Yeah. I think, and there's two things that I want to mention before I ask you about the American drilling, because I work with a lot of Russians, and I like the way they drilled as well. And it was more of a problem-solving based drilling. Yeah. But there's two things that are really important to understand. There was a recent study by, I'm not going to mention it, I do have it on my phone, but she figured out that it takes around 400 repetitions to create synapses in the brain. But if you do it playfully, it only takes about 12. So, you can practice something, over and over again, or if you can do it in a playful manner, like a problem-solving manner, you're going to absorb it in a much faster time. The other big part of this, which most people don't know, is the amygdala, which is the part of the brain called the lizard brain, that's the fight or flight part of the brain, has a huge role in storing information. It basically decides how deep to store information. It decides whether you store something for a couple, seconds. Like if I'm on the phone with you, I need to know a code, and you tell me the code, and I can punch it in, and then 7 seconds later, that code's gone. That's all I need it for. But jiu-jitsu, you want to retain all that information as much as you can. And they figured out that the more emotionally aroused you are, the deeper you store information.
It means more.
Yes.
So your amygdala interprets it as more valuable information.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes perfect
sense.
So
if you look at drilling compared to specific training, there is very little emotional value in drilling. You're kind of doing it over again. You're just thinking about it. When you're doing specific training, there's high stakes. Yeah. You're sitting there, okay, I don't want to make mistakes. I don't want to get submitted. I don't want to, or rolling either way. But it's much, I can guarantee if I asked both you guys when the last 3 times you got submitted, you'd have a very good idea where they were. You know what I mean?
Because it means something.
Because it means something. I hate it. I remember exactly.
I remember it was like 1986.
I go white, but people beat me in practice. I guess store that information, write it down in a little book.
Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of books on it now that really explain it a lot better than what I can articulate it. But it's an evolution of learning now, which we pretty much use to learn everything. It's all problem solving.
And learning to me is a mystery in a lot of ways, because like think about a class, right? I get 20 people in the class, right? I show them, let's say, an armbar from guard, an uchimata, whatever move. It's the same information. It's given to every single individual in that group, right? Some people get it without drilling. No one ever taught me a guillotine or a darce. I saw a guillotine. I was like, that makes perfect sense. Got it, you know? And then some people, they just have a hard time absorbing information. Now, it's the same amount of data. And like, why is it that for some people that the absorption of information takes such a higher precedence than it does over other individuals? And I think you just hit the nail on the head when you're saying that there's an emotional attachment to that information. It means something to you. Right? Like, this is important stuff. I got to learn this. Like, it's the guy that thinks about berimbolos all day, drills berimbolos all day, watches a million videos on berimbolos, you know, dreams about Rafael Mendes and Mike Musumeci, and then, you know, and then he's blown away that the next day he's hitting berimbolos. I'm like, see, it's the drilling that did it. It's like, no, it's the emotional attachment to the move. It means it means so much to you. You would actually hold on to that information.
Socrates said that. I mean, like, he had the Socratic method, which was, you know, key to learning anything, is questioning why. If you keep questioning why and you go deeper and deeper and deeper, you're going to come to a truth in the end, and you're going to have so much knowledge on that. I remember Craig Jones, before he blew up, he would sit there and I'd come to class and he was there already, and he'd be scissoring some other dude trying to figure out different things. And he'd go like, Kit, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And like, his knowledge on that was far greater than mine. So I'd be like, well, it looks good to me, you know. But he was consistently sitting there and trying to figure things out. And, you know, why does this work? Why does this, you know, why is this effective? And I think if people have that curiosity, good, that's the word I'm looking for, they're going to get good at whatever they're doing, whether it's acting, whatever it is. You've got to have that curious personality to really think like, why. When I was starting, I was never really too interested in how to do something. You know, some people, you know, when you teach something and someone will be like, what if this happens, what if that happens? That was never me. I was always like, why would I do that? You know, why do we do that? Because I thought it was more important to figure out why we're doing that, and then you can kind of figure out the timing and stuff.